Mrs. Ross Does Math. Today I am breaking up our Lesson 7 into two parts. Lesson 7 is all about multiplying decimals and dividing decimals. Multiplying decimals is something that I've had students in the past absolutely rock, but dividing decimals is something that students have struggled with a little bit. So I want to make sure that I can spend enough time on both topics. Instead of doing it in one class period, we are going to do it in two just to make sure that everyone understands it. So today our topic is Lesson 7A, Multiplying Decimals. And your essential question today is, what are the steps for multiplying decimals? Please take a moment and write this information down. Okay, and here we go. So our notes today are going to be based around this central problem, 1.35 times 6.4. Now you'll notice the further along in the school year we get, the less I am using X to indicate multiplication. And that's because starting in 2 units, our X is going to be representing a variable. It is no longer multiplication. So from here on out, we will be using either a dot or these parentheses when 2 items are side by side to indicate multiplication. Now, if I'm going and writing down an X instead, I really want you guys to call me out on it, because that is something that I struggle with in converting at the beginning of the year, moving towards the end, just like you guys do. So please call me out on it if that is something that you notice I am doing, because I want to make sure that I'm modeling the correct form of multiplication for you. All right? So I would like you to make a 2-column chart just like we did in our last set of notes, but I want one side to be a little bit smaller than the other. And you're going to call these steps and action. Okay, so steps are going to be on the left, action on the right. Here we go. So when we are doing our very first step, we are going to set up the problem as if there are no decimals. So here, if I have the problem of 1.35 times 6.4, I, as my action, will simply write it as 135 times 6.4. Or it's going to look like 135 times 64. So once again, step 1 is we are going to set up the problem as if there are no decimals. Now, one key piece that we want to make sure that we remember is when we're multiplying, the number with more digits always goes on top. So if instead of being 1.65 times 6.4, this happened to be 6.4 times 1.35, we would always put the 1.35 on top, because it is very difficult to do two digits on top and 3 in the bottom, whereas it's a lot easier to go 3 digits in the top of a multiplication problem and 2 digits on the bottom. So once again, the number with more digits always goes on top. Now, step 2 of this is that we are going to go ahead and solve as if there is no decimal. So I'm going to go ahead and solve for my 135 times my 64. Now I'm going to do that by beginning by going 4 times 5, which is 20. I'm going to bring down the 0 and I'm going to carry the 2. Now I'm going to go 4 times 3, which is, and I'm going to add the 2, which will make it 14. So I'm going to bring down the 4 and I'm going to carry the 1. Now I'm going to go 1 times 4, which is, plus 1, which will make it, good, 5. Now that I am done with the 4 and I have used the 4 on all 3 numbers up top, I'm going to cross it out and I'm going to put a 0 in its place so I make sure I don't ever use it again. Now I'm going to go and use the 6. And I'm going to cross out these numbers here because I've also used them too. Now I'm going to go 6 times 5, which is 30. So I'm going to bring down the 0, put a 3. I'm going to go 6 times 3, which is add the 3. That'll make it 21. So I'm going to bring down the 1, make this a 2 up here. I'm going to go 6 times 1, which is plus 2. You got it, 8. And now I'm going to solve it. Now when we solve these, we are going to go ahead and add these numbers together. So now I'd have 0 and 0 making 0, 4 and 0, which would make 4, 5 and 1, which would make 6, and I have my 8 right down there. Okay. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to use the 8, 6, 4, and the 0 in our next piece. So we know here, and I just had to move to a separate sheet of paper because I like to write big, okay? For my third step, I'm going to go ahead and count the digits behind the decimal in my original problem. And this will end up being the number of digits in my final answer. So I have the answer of 8640 so far. In my problem, initially, I have 1.35, and I have these two numbers right here, which are behind my decimal. So that means I have 2 numbers behind my decimal, or 2 digits. In 6.4, I have 1 number behind, or 1 digit behind the decimal. So 1 down here, 2 up here. That means I have 3 total digits behind my decimal. Now I'm going to use that information to help me with number 4. For number 4, that's going to give us our final answer. We are going to move our decimal going from the right to the left to help us find our answer. So if I have 8640, I'm going to start my decimal at the end of the number, and I'm going to count backwards 1, 2, 3 times. And that means it's going to go right here in between the 8 and the 6. So our final answer is 8.640. Okay. So once again, we're going to count up in step 3 the number of digits that are supposed to be behind our answer, and then we're going to use that to help us in getting our answer. Now what I'm going to ask you to do is to walk through some practice problems with me, so this way we can go ahead and make sure that everyone's on the same track. So when we take a look at 3.24 times 1.56, I'm going to go ahead and do one of those problems over here on the side, and I'll do the other one down below just to make sure that I have enough room. Okay? So I'm going to do this problem right over here. Now my first step was to rewrite these to make sure that the number with the most amount of digits is on top. Well, here they both happen to have 3 digits. So either one can be on top. And I need to write them without their decimals. So I'm going to go 324 and 156. Now I'm going to go through the process of multiplying them. So I'm going to go 6 times 4, which is, I'm going to bring down the 4, carry the 2. I'm going to go 6 times 2, which is plus 2, which would make it 14. So I'll bring down the 4, carry the 1. I'm going to go 6 times 3, which is, add the 1. That gives me 19. I'm not going to do anything with my numbers yet besides cross out the 6 and put a 0 in its place. Now I'm going to go 5 times 4, which is 20, so I bring down a 0. I already have a 2, luckily, up here, so I'm going to go ahead and keep that. I'm going to go 5 times 2, which is plus 2. That's going to give me 12, so I'm going to bring down the 2, carry the 1, which I already have. I'm going to go 5 times 3, which is plus 1. That's going to give me 16. Okay. Now I got to keep this going. I'm going to cross out the 5. Now I put 2 zeros because I'm not using the first 2 digits in my bottom problem. And now I'm going to go 1 times 4, which is 4. 1 times 2, which is 2. And 1 times 3, which is 3. Now we're going to go ahead and add this all up. So I'm going to go 4 plus 0 plus 0. It's going to give me 4. 4 plus 0, that's going to give me 4. 9 and 2 and 6, Well, 9 and 2 are 11, or sorry, 9 and 2 and 4. So 9 and 2 make 11, plus 4 is going to make 15. So I'm going to bring down the 5. I'm going to carry the 1. So now I have 1 plus 1, which is 2, plus 6, which is 8, plus 2, which is 10. So I'm going to bring down the 0, carry the 1. I'm going to go 1 plus 1, which is 2, plus 3, which is 5. So I get 50544. Now, we need to move into step 3, which is where we figure out how many digits are behind our decimal and our final answer. Well, I have 2 digits behind the decimal here, and I have 2 digits behind the decimal here. Those 2 digits, when added together, are going to give me 4 digits behind my decimal. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to place my decimal in between 5 and 0, giving me a final answer of 5.0544. Now, unless I ask you to round, you need to make sure that you include every single one of those digits. All right? Next, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the 0.24 times 96. So, of these, 0.24 has more digits because there's 1, 2, 3 digits. The 0 counts as a digit, and 96 only has 2 digits. So 0.24 is going to be on top, and I'm actually going to do that right over here. So I'm going to go 0.24, and I'm going to go 96. Excuse me. So now I'm going to go ahead and start my multiplying. I'm going to go 6 times 4, which is 24. So I'm going to bring down the 4, carry the 2. 6 times 2 is plus 2, which makes it 14. So I'm going to bring down those 4, carry the 1. 6 times 0 is 0 plus 1, which would make it 1. Now I'm done with the 6. I'm going to put a 0 in its place. Now I'm going to go 9 times 6, which is, 9 times 4. Sorry about that. 9 times 4, which is 36. So I'm going to bring down the 6, and I'm going to change this to a 3. 9 times 2, which is 18, plus 2, which would give us 21. So I'm going to bring down the 1, make that a 2. 9 times 0, which is plus 2, which is going to make it. There we go. And now I'm going to add all this together. So I've got 4. 4 plus 6 is 10, so I bring down the 0, carry the 1. I've got a 1 plus 1 plus 1, which is going to make this 3. And I have a 2 right here. So now I need to figure out how many digits are behind my answer. Okay. So now here in my original problem, I've got the 0.24. So that means 2 digits behind my decimal. And in my 96, I have no numbers behind a decimal. So I'm only going to have 2 numbers behind a decimal in my answer. And when I do that, once again, we place the decimal on the very far right, and we're going to move it in once, twice. So our final answer is going to be 23.04. And that happens to be our product, or the mathy word, for the answer to a multiplication problem. If you have any questions at all, please reach out to me. Pause this video, re-watch it, do anything that you need to in order to have this make sense to you. Thank you so very much for watching. This has been Mrs. Ross Does Math.